Hey everyone! Are you ready to take your English listening skills to the next level? In today's video, we've put together a fantastic listening practice session designed to help you understand native speakers more easily. Grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and let's improve your English together. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a lesson. Let's get started.
Have you taken a close look at the latest updates in generative AI over the past few months? The speed at which these algorithms are advancing is genuinely unsettling to me.
I have been following the technology closely, Alex. However, I do not share your existential dread about its rapid evolution.
I honestly believe we are heading toward a massive global crisis. AI will eliminate millions of jobs and gradually erode our capacity for independent thought.
Every technological revolution triggered the exact same fears in society. History shows that technology consistently transforms work rather than outright destroying it.
The historical analogy fails because previous revolutions only replaced muscle power. Industrial machines automated physical labor, and computers automated basic data entry.
That is true, but automation has always pushed human labor toward higher complexity. Why should this transition be fundamentally different?
Artificial intelligence is entirely different because it targets cognition, creativity, and decision-making. These were the very domains we assumed were uniquely human.
AI tools do not actually possess consciousness or moral reasoning. They simply process complex statistical patterns across vast data sets.
When machines can write code, draft contracts, and analyze medical scans faster than professionals, where exactly are humans supposed to pivot?
Humans pivot toward higher-level synthesis, emotional intelligence, and contextual understanding. An algorithm cannot understand subtle human nuances or negotiate with genuine empathy.
That perspective sounds comforting in theory, but businesses operate on bottom-line efficiency. If AI performs 80% of the work, companies will lay off most entry-level employees.
That challenge exists during transition periods, but lower costs expand the overall economy. Entirely new industries will emerge that we cannot currently imagine.
Prompt engineering or basic AI auditing are temporary band-aids, not sustainable careers. As systems improve, even those tasks will become fully automated.
Think back 30 years ago when cloud architects or social media strategists did not exist. Technological shifts always create unpredictable categories of employment.
Previous technological shifts unfolded over generations, giving education systems time to adjust. The current AI revolution is unfolding in months and years.
Disruption is undeniably painful, and governments must establish better safety nets. However, halting technological progress has never been a viable solution.
Millions of graphic designers, translators, and junior developers are being displaced right now. They cannot afford to wait decades for theoretical new industries to appear.
AI provides a baseline draft, but human translators understand cultural idiom and humor. A designer using AI can generate concepts faster, allowing more time for genuine artistic vision.
You call basic tasks tedious drudgery, but that drudgery builds human cognitive muscle. If you stop using your cognitive capacity, it inevitably atrophies.
Delegating routine tasks does not automatically cause intellectual decline. Calculators freed students from tedious arithmetic, allowing us to teach higher-level calculus much earlier.
The calculator analogy is deeply flawed because a calculator only performs rigid arithmetic operations. It does not generate persuasive arguments or formulate worldviews.
AI functions as an intellectual bicycle for the human mind. It offloads the cognitive burden of organizing information so we can focus on critical evaluation.
When an AI drafts an essay or analyzes a social issue, it shapes the structure of thought itself. Generative models inherent bias toward mainstream online consensus.
Cognitive homogenization only happens if people accept machine outputs uncritically. The role of human education must simply pivot toward rigorous audit and verification.
Expecting the average person or student to audit algorithmic output is unrealistic when convenience wins. Human nature naturally seeks the path of least resistance.
Intellectual laziness existed long before generative models were ever developed. People used to copy paragraphs directly from encyclopedias without critical thought.
If a system provides a fluent and well-structured answer, 90% of people accept it blindly. We are already seeing students submit papers they have not even read.
That simply proves that our current educational assessment methods are outdated. If a student can pass an exam using a basic prompt, the exam was poorly designed.
Restructuring the entire global educational system takes decades to implement at scale. Meanwhile, the cognitive decline of an entire generation is happening immediately.
We need to test for live debate, oral defense, and real-world problem solving. Those practical applications require real-time cognitive engagement that cannot be faked.
When people become dependent on corporate algorithms to answer complex questions, we surrender democratic agency. If we cannot understand the underlying algorithmic logic, independent thought becomes an illusion.
That risk exists only if we allow proprietary black box systems to operate without public regulation. Open source models and algorithmic auditing ensure transparency and democratic oversight.
Relying on central systems gives users the illusion of capability while locking them into corporate dependencies. You do not truly possess knowledge if you must rent it from a server farm.
True mastery has always relied on tools and infrastructure built by previous generations. You do not build your own computer from sand before learning software engineering.
Building on abstractions works only when you retain literacy in the underlying layer. When AI handles problem solving, humans lose the fundamental skills needed to intervene when systems fail.
Machines frequently hallucinate and lack real-world physical context, making human expertise indispensable. In high-stakes fields like medicine, human specialists must always make the final diagnostic call.
Elite medical specialists might remain necessary, but what about the core middle class? When white-collar office jobs are automated, economic inequality will widen dramatically.
Economic displacement requires bold policy interventions, such as universal basic income or taxing corporate automation gains. However, halting innovation out of fear remains historically counterproductive.
Governments move far too slowly to handle exponential technological growth. By the time politicians pass regulations, the middle class will already be severely damaged.
We cannot stop global technological progress, so our only choice is active adaptation. Just as the printing press democratized literacy, AI can trigger an unprecedented intellectual renaissance.
The printing press required humans to actively decode symbols and synthesize ideas independently. AI delivers pre-packaged conclusions, which automates intellectual engagement away entirely.
That only happens if you treat the software as an oracle instead of a partner. I use AI to challenge my assumptions and find logical fallacies in my writing.
You are a disciplined thinker, but mass consumer behavior is driven by speed and convenience. The vast majority of people will use AI to avoid thinking altogether.
Then our cultural norm must explicitly value skepticism, curiosity, and original inquiry. Technology reflects the values of the society that chooses to adopt it.
I fear we are trading human autonomy for corporate efficiency and immediate convenience. Once we lose our capacity for deep independent thought, we may never reclaim it.
I respect your caution, Alex, and vigilance is certainly required during this transition. But if we navigate this era with clear intention, AI will elevate human potential rather than diminish it.
Look at the legal sector as a clear warning sign. Paralegals used to spend years reading case law to build foundational knowledge, but now software summarizes those documents instantly.
Summarizing hundreds of pages in seconds allows junior lawyers to focus on legal strategy earlier in their careers. They can spend more time understanding client needs rather than reading routine filings.
But without reading those raw documents, they miss the subtle legal precedents and contradictions that shape great attorneys. You cannot master legal strategy if you skip the foundational research process.
The foundational research process has simply shifted to evaluating the accuracy of synthesized summaries. Finding contradictions in an automated summary still requires a sharp legal mind.
Most junior staff will simply trust the summary because they lack the experience to spot missing context. The software creates a dangerous illusion of comprehension that covers up underlying ignorance.
That is why senior partners must mentor junior staff on how to cross-examine software results. The human element of mentorship becomes more vital, not less.
Corporate partners are under pressure to cut billable hours and maximize profits. They will cut training budgets and rely entirely on automated platforms to reduce overhead.
Firms that rely entirely on unverified automation will eventually make catastrophic legal errors. Market forces will naturally reward the firms that combine human oversight with technological speed.
By the time market forces correct those errors, countless careers will already be destroyed. We are sacrificing long-term professional competence for short-term corporate profit margins.
Transition costs are real, but consider how AI democratizes access to legal advice for ordinary people. Millions who could never afford an attorney can now understand their legal rights.
Understanding your rights through a chatbot is not the same as having dedicated legal representation. A chatbot cannot represent you in court or fight against corporate lawyers.
It is vastly better than having zero guidance at all when facing complex legal paperwork. Democratizing basic knowledge gives power back to individuals who were previously left without resources.
It gives them a false sense of security while giant tech platforms control the information flow. If an algorithm biases its legal interpretation toward corporate interests, ordinary citizens will not notice.
That highlights the necessity of open-source artificial intelligence systems developed for public benefit. We must ensure that powerful cognitive tools are not monopolized by a few corporations.
Open-source models still require massive computing power and infrastructure that only tech giants control. The centralization of power remains inevitable due to the sheer cost of hardware.
Compute costs historically plummet over time as hardware efficiency improves. What requires a massive data center today will run locally on consumer devices tomorrow.
Even if hardware becomes cheaper, the data used to train these models remains concentrated. A few corporations control the digital history and creative output of entire societies.
Public datasets and open community initiatives are expanding rapidly across the globe. Society will demand fair data governance once awareness of these issues becomes widespread.
Public awareness moves slowly while technology advances at an exponential rate. By the time regulations are passed, corporate models will already dictate public discourse.
We faced similar panics with television, radio, and the internet centralized media era. Society eventually adapted by creating public broadcasting, digital privacy laws, and user protections.
Broadcast media influenced what people watched, but AI influences how people formulate sentences and structure thoughts. The level of cognitive manipulation possible today is completely unprecedented.
That is precisely why teaching critical digital literacy must become our highest educational priority. We must train people to question the origin and underlying logic of every piece of digital content.
How can students cultivate critical digital literacy when their teachers are using AI to grade assignments? The entire feedback loop of human learning is being automated on both sides.
Teachers using AI to grade routine multiple-choice items gain more time for one-on-one student coaching. Automation should clear administrative overhead so real human connection can flourish.
In practice, school districts will just increase class sizes to cut budget costs. They will assign one teacher to hundreds of students because the software handles the grading.
That is a failure of educational funding and political policy, not a failure of technology itself. We must fight for better public investment rather than blaming software innovations.
Technology and political policy cannot be neatly separated in the real world. Technology dictates economic incentives, and economic incentives dictate how institutions structure themselves.
Technology creates possibilities, but human values determine how those possibilities are realized. We have repeatedly chosen to direct powerful technologies toward human betterment throughout history.
We have also directed powerful technologies toward warfare, environmental destruction, and mass surveillance. Assuming technological development automatically leads to human betterment is dangerous optimism.
Optimism is not passive assumption, it is an active commitment to building a better outcome. Pessimism creates a self-fulfilling prophecy of helplessness that surrenders the future to bad actors.
Skepticism is not helplessness, it is necessary defense against uncritical adoption. If we do not relentlessly critique these platforms, we will wake up in a world devoid of human agency.
Rigorous critique is essential, provided it leads to constructive governance rather than total panic. We need guardrails that protect human workers while allowing innovation to flourish.
What specific guardrails can possibly keep up with systems that double in capability every few months? Traditional legislative bodies are completely equipped to regulate software algorithms.
Regulatory frameworks can focus on liability, transparency, and data rights rather than technical code. Holding companies strictly liable for algorithmic harms forces them to deploy systems safely.
Holding corporations liable after the damage is done does not restore lost livelihoods or ruined industries. Prevention is the only real protection, but pre-deployment safety testing is routinely rushed.
Rushing pre-deployment testing is a legitimate problem that requires international safety standards. Global cooperation on technological guardrails is already taking shape among major nations.
International treaties on carbon emissions and nuclear proliferation have taken decades with mixed results. Expecting swift global consensus on artificial intelligence competition seems naive.
The economic and security risks of uncontrolled systems are so high that nations share a mutual interest in safety. Self-preservation will force international cooperation faster than you think.
In the meantime, creative professions are being systematically devalued by automated generation tools. Artists, writers, and musicians are seeing their work scraped without consent or compensation.
Intellectual property frameworks must be updated to compensate creators whose work trains generative systems. Artists should be paid royalties when their distinct styles are utilized.
Adding royalty fees after stripping artists of their primary livelihoods will not save the creative industry. Generative tools flood the market with cheap content, driving economic value down to zero.
Mass production made clothing cheap, but handcrafted original garments became higher-value luxury items. Authentic human creation will command a premium price precisely because automated content is everywhere.
Only a tiny elite of human creators will survive in that luxury market. The vast majority of working artists who relied on commercial work will be driven out entirely.
Commercial art has always evolved alongside technology, from printmaking to digital illustration software. Artists who adapt to new digital tools will expand their creative capabilities significantly.
Using Photoshop is fundamentally different from typing a text prompt into an image generator. One requires manual skill and visual technique, while the other delegates execution to software.
Prompting is just an initial interface. Serious digital creators refine, compose, and edit outputs extensively. The artistic vision remains human, even if the rendering tool is algorithmic.
When the tool renders the entire piece, the line between human vision and machine execution disappears. We are redefining art down to mere preference selection from a list of generated options.
Art has always been defined by intent, conceptual depth, and emotional resonance rather than physical effort. If a piece provokes deep reflection in the viewer, the tool used to create it is secondary.
Emotional resonance comes from knowing another human being poured their lived experience into that work. Machine output lacks lived experience, suffering, love, or mortal perspective.
The viewer supplies the emotional interpretation based on their own human lived experience. A machine can generate a beautiful melody, but the human listener gives that melody its meaning.
If meaning depends entirely on the consumer, we risk falling into a culture of superficial stimulation. We will consume endless synthetic media designed specifically to trigger dopamine responses.
Synthetic media overload will eventually cause audience fatigue and a demand for human authenticity. People will value live performances, handwritten letters, and real physical gatherings more than ever.
I hope that cultural counter-reaction happens before people lose their capacity for sustained attention. Short-form synthetic content is already destroying attention spans across younger demographics.
Attention spans are shifting, but young people are also creating complex online communities and collaborative projects. Every generation panics about the media habits of the next generation.
The panic is justified when reading comprehension scores and analytical skills decline globally. We are observing measurable drops in foundational literacy alongside the rise of digital distraction.
Correlation does not equal causation, as educational disruptions have many complex social causes. Blaming technology alone ignores poverty, educational underfunding, and systemic inequality.
Technology amplifies those existing social inequalities rather than fixing them automatically. Wealthy families will afford human tutors and private schools, while poor districts get automated software instruction.
That is precisely why we must advocate for public funding to provide human mentorship to every student. Technology should supplement human teaching in underfunded areas, not replace it entirely.
School boards facing budget crises will always choose the cheaper automated option. Without strict legal mandates requiring human staff, automated instruction will become the default for lower classes.
Then we must fight for those legal mandates through civic action and political organizing. Technology gives us powerful organization tools to mobilize public opinion and demand better policies.
Public mobilization is increasingly difficult when social algorithms control the distribution of political information. Corporate platforms amplify outrage and division to maximize user engagement.
Alternative platform models and decentralized communication protocols are gaining traction worldwide. People are actively seeking healthier digital spaces that prioritize community over algorithmic outrage.
Building alternative digital spaces takes time, while corporate monopolies control current information channels. Our democratic debate is happening on private infrastructure designed for profit.
Public pressure has repeatedly forced tech companies to change content policies and privacy standards. Democracy is a continuous struggle, and public agency still shapes corporate policy.
Corporate concessions are usually cosmetic adjustments designed to avoid actual government regulation. The core business model based on user engagement and data extraction remains unchanged.
Then we must mandate structural changes through legislation like antitrust enforcement and data sovereignty laws. We have broken up dangerous corporate monopolies in the past when necessary.
Antitrust lawsuits take decades to resolve in court, while software updates happen overnight. The speed mismatch between legal institutions and tech development remains our greatest vulnerability.
That speed mismatch forces legal institutions to innovate and streamline their regulatory processes. External pressure is precisely what drives bureaucratic reform in modern governments.
Reform happens only if citizens retain the critical capacity to organize and demand change. If automated media lulls society into cognitive passivity, public resistance fades away.
Human beings possess an inherent drive for self-determination and dignity that cannot be easily erased. History shows that people eventually push back against systems that diminish their autonomy.
Resistance requires clear understanding of how control operates in a complex technological system. When control is hidden behind friendly user interfaces and convenient services, people do not resist.
Convenience is attractive, but people quickly notice when their livelihoods or personal freedoms are threatened. Awareness grows through lived experience, prompting collective responses.
I worry that collective response will come too late, after central infrastructure is fully automated. Reclaiming autonomy from autonomous systems might prove far harder than resisting human rulers.
Machines are ultimately software running on physical hardware maintained by human engineers. They do not possess independent agency, military force, or political authority outside of human structures.
But the humans who own those physical servers gain unprecedented power over the rest of society. We are recreating a feudal system where tech lords control the digital infrastructure we depend on.
Feudalism collapsed because new economic tools empowered a broader class of educated citizens. AI can similarly empower millions of independent creators and entrepreneurs to challenge centralized institutions.
Empowering individuals works only if they retain ownership over their data and cognitive outputs. Current platform terms of service strip users of ownership the moment they use the software.
Which is why digital rights movements are fighting for user ownership and data portability right now. Legislation is shifting toward giving individuals explicit rights over their personal data.
Passing laws on paper is meaningless without technical enforcement mechanisms that ordinary people can verify. most users cannot verify whether a server deleted their data or trained a model on it.
Cryptographic verification and zero-knowledge proofs offer technical solutions for data privacy. Engineering innovation is creating tools specifically designed to protect individual autonomy.
We are trapped in a perpetual arms race between privacy tools and invasive tracking systems. In an arms race, the side with billions in capital always maintains a massive advantage.
Open-source developer communities operate globally with millions of contributors collaborating freely. Collective human ingenuity regularly matches or surpasses corporate research labs.
Open-source projects are increasingly funded by those same corporate tech giants to lower their own costs. The boundary between independent developer communities and corporate interests is deeply blurred.
Strategic corporate funding of open-source software built the open internet infrastructure we use today. Collaboration between commercial capital and open communities can serve the public good.
It serves the public good until corporate strategy shifts and access is suddenly restricted or monetized. Relying on corporate benevolence for public infrastructure is inherently risky.
That is why public investment in digital infrastructure must be treated as a basic public utility. Municipalities and nations should fund public computing resources for their citizens.
Taxpayers are already struggling with inflation, housing costs, and crumbling physical infrastructure. Convincing governments to spend billions on public server farms will face immense political pushback.
The economic return on computing infrastructure is extraordinarily high compared to traditional public projects. Investing in digital infrastructure directly boosts future tax revenues and economic productivity.
Productivity gains mean nothing to average workers if those gains flow exclusively to capital owners. Without radical wealth redistribution, higher productivity simply accelerates economic inequality.
Wealth redistribution mechanisms have been successfully implemented during major economic transitions throughout history. The progressive tax systems of the 20th century were created precisely to address industrial inequality.
Implementing progressive taxation globally requires international tax coordination that rarely functions effectively. Capital moves instantly to offshore tax havens to avoid national regulations.
Recent global agreements on minimum corporate tax rates show that international tax coordination is possible. Nations are realizing that uncoordinated tax policies harm everyone.
Those global agreements are filled with loopholes negotiated by corporate lobbyists. The final policies are often diluted until they become ineffective at redistributing wealth.
Imperfect policies are a starting point for further reform, not a reason to abandon governance entirely. Political progress is incremental, requiring sustained effort over time.
Time is the one resource we lack when dealing with exponential technological acceleration. Incremental political progress cannot keep pace with algorithms that evolve weekly.
If we assume failure from the start, we guarantee the worst possible outcome. We must work actively within our institutions to accelerate policy responses alongside technological growth.
Active engagement requires constant vigilance and skepticism toward technological promises. We must constantly ask who benefits from automation and who bears the hidden costs.
Asking those critical questions is necessary for healthy democratic debate. Skepticism keeps developers accountable, while optimism provides the vision required to build better tools.
I hope your optimism proves justified, Chloe, because the stakes could not possibly be higher. We are reshaping the definition of human labor, intellect, and agency simultaneously.
The stakes are high, Alex, but human history is a story of navigating high stakes successfully. If we stay committed to human dignity, critical inquiry, and ethical stewardship, we will build a future where technology serves humanity, not the other way around.